Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life.
So on that last point, to your knowledge, Elon Musk is not a scientist.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
You're not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I forgot.
See how Microsoft is.
Change my,
Your Honor, may I have permission to briefly ask the witness a few questions?
Briefly.
Please identify yourself for the record, Captain.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Jay Gerardo on behalf of Microsoft. Dr. Russell, it's a pleasure to meet you this morning. Just want to confirm, you are not offering an opinion today on OpenAI's partnership with Microsoft, correct?
Correct.
You've never analyzed OpenAI's relationship with Microsoft, right?
That's not quite true. I think I referred to it in an op-ed piece that I wrote, or I think it was the Guardian newspaper. I don't remember the exact date. Probably April or May of 2023, I think.
To be clear, Professor Russell, in your opinion in this case, you never reviewed any of the agreements between OpenAI and Microsoft, correct?
That's correct.
And you're not offering an opinion in this case on whether OpenAI's partnership with Microsoft is bad from a safety perspective, correct?
That's correct.
You were not asked to do that analysis,
I
right?
was not asked to do that.
And you could have been.
I could have been.
Honor.
Oh,
No further questions, Your Honor.
okay. Now, Mr. Mullen. Cross or redirect, limited to the scope of cross.
On that last point, and also on the point, few questions that were asked of you by Mr. Frenzen. Were you asked to do anything other than provide an opinion to explain to the jury safety risks associated with artificial intelligence?
That was the topic I was asked to write the report on. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Frenzen asked you about Mr. Musk and him serving as some kind of an advisor of the president. To your knowledge, is Mr. Musk an AI scientist?
No, he's not.
Okay.
Mr. Brockman, you please rise.
Please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this court and jury shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God, or so you affirm? Please say I do or I affirm.
I do.
Please be seated and speak clearly into the microphone. Please state your full name and spell out your last name for the record.
Greg Brockman, Brockman.
Good morning, Mr. Brockman.
Good morning.
You may proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Brockman. I'm Steve Mullo. We haven't met before.
Good morning.
In 2015, you went to work for OpenAI, a nonprofit, as the chief technology officer. Is that right?
Yeah, I helped start the company. Yes.
Okay. And in 2019, OpenAI announced the formation of OpenAI and LP, that was a cap profit company that was going to fund the nonprofit, correct?
I would say that we did start a cap profit in 2019, yes.
Okay. And the purpose was to fund the nonprofit.
I'm not sure if I would characterize it like that.
You have an ownership interest in this cap profit company?
That is accurate.
All right. And you invested $0 in order to acquire that interest, correct?
That is also accurate.
I'm sorry?
That is also accurate.
All right. And your ownership interest in this for-profit is valued today at more than $20 billion. correct?
Overruled.
Yes.
In fact, it may be closer to $30 billion, correct?
Objection. Overruled.
I think that may be true, yes.
You were involved in OpenAI from its earliest days, correct?
Yes,
Before it even had the name OpenAI, is that right?
that's right.
In fact, you were referring to it as part of something called YC Research, a nonprofit AI lab. Is that right?
I think that I would change the words around a little bit, but I think that was approximately correct.
Change the word.
I said I would change the words around a little bit.
How would you change the words around a little bit?
Well, the original conception was that we were going to create Y Combinator research, which was going to be for science and research generally. YCAI would be the first group within that. And that is what ultimately became OpenAI.
I'm going to direct your attention to Plaintiff's Exhibit 8, which the parties have stipulated may be admitted.
Proceed.
And just, do I have a copy of this in the binder?
It should be in the binder, but it's also on your screen.
If I could have the binder as well, that'd be very helpful. Thank
You
you.
may approach.
So it's like this.
Okay. If you take a look at this Plaintiff's Exhibit 8, it's an email from you. In the first instance at the top, it is addressed to Nimit Jain, said October 26th of 2015. You see that?
I do.
And if you go down about the middle of the page, you see an email you can see from Greg Brockman there at the top, dated October 20th of 2015 at 8:55 a.m. to Marissa. Do you know that was Marissa Mayer? Is that right?
Yes.
Tell the jury who Marissa Mayer is.
She was, I believe, at the time, the CEO of Yahoo.
Okay, she's a prominent person in Silicon Valley, right?
I would say so.
So this is less than 2 months before the December 11th, 2015 announcement of OpenAI, right?
Yes.
You were soliciting a donation for a new nonprofit AI lab building toward artificial general intelligence, right?
Yes, we wanted her to donate to this lab.
And that was OpenAI eventually, right?
I would say this became OpenAI.
In the next paragraph, you mention donors, including Elon Musk and Jessica Livingston, Reid Hoffman, and Peter Thiel. Those are all prominent people in Silicon Valley.
I think that's fair to characterize them that way.
You wrote Ms. Mayer a little further down that the purpose of you writing her was you were asking her for money, right?
We're asking her to donate.
Okay. And you said, I'm personally donating $100K. You see that?
Yes.
And by that, you meant $100,000, right?
Yes.
You never donated any cash to OpenAI, this nonprofit, did you?
I did not end up donating. That's true.
Okay. So that was a false statement.
I disagree with that characterization.
You told others you would donate $100,000 to OpenAI, didn't you?
Certainly wouldn't be surprised if I did.
Okay. Did you tell Sam Altman that you were donating $100,000?
I did. I'm happy to provide some context if it would be helpful.
So you need to do a couple of things. One, you need to speak up, move that mic so it actually catches your voice. And two, try to slow down. Go
Yes,
ahead.
Your Honor. I said I did, and I would be happy to provide context if helpful.
Did you told Elon Musk that you were going to donate $100,000?
I'm not certain about that.
Lead him to believe that you would donate $100,000?
also not certain about that.
Did you think it was morally bankrupt to say that you were personally donating $100,000 and then not do that?
No.
Did you tell the other people that you mentioned in the email, Jessica Livingston, Reed Hoffman, and Peter Thiel, that you were donating $100,000?
I'm not certain.
Did you lead any of them to believe that you'd be donating $100,000?
Once again, not certain.
You chose to mention Elon Musk first in that group of people, didn't you?
You certainly listed first, yes.
And you thought that by mentioning his name, that would be likely to lead to donations to OpenAI, the nonprofit?
I mean, I was providing information on who was donating. Certainly, I would hope that people would be more excited to have this set of people involved.
Well, I guess my question is, though, is did you think that by mentioning Elon Musk's name, it would be more likely that people would donate money to this cause?
As compared to other people, or just versus?
First generally.
I would hope so.
Okay. And probably compared to other people as well, right?
I'm not certain how to characterize that.
You met Mr. Musk, Elon, at the Rosewood Hotel at a dinner in 2015 in Menlo Park, right?
That is true.
And this was a dinner organized for a small group of people interested in AI?
I think that's a fair characterization of it.
Did you consider yourself a peer of Elon's at that time?
I don't think that was a thought that crossed my mind.
Okay. He was a highly respected leader in the tech community at that time, at the time of the dinner.
Is that a question?
Yes.
I mean, I think certainly.
You were an early employee at a company called Stripe, right?
Yes.
And eventually you became chief technology officer at Stripe.
Yes.
You left Stripe by the time of that dinner.
Yes.
Did you leave Stripe under any kind of a cloud?
No.
At the time of the dinner, you were acquainted with Sam Altman, weren't you?
Yes.
You were actually excited by the fact that Elon would chat with you at the dinner, didn't you? Weren't you?
I'm not sure if I would use the word excited, but certainly I appreciated it.
At the dinner, did Mr. Altman say anything specifically about AI safety that you recall?
I don't recall.
And how about Elon?
I do recall one very specific thing he said.
What was that?
It was comments about Demis Hassabis.
And what did he say?
He said, so Elon showed up a little bit late for the dinner. When he showed up, the first thing I remember him saying, maybe he said other things, but the first thing I remember was he asked the table, is Demis Hassabis evil?
Okay. And Demis Hassabis was running the AI lab at Google at the time, right?
At DeepMind, which is a subsidiary of Google at the time, yes. At DeepMind, which was a subsidiary of Google at the time, yes.
He founded DeepMinds and then Google acquired DeepMinds, right?
Yes.
Would you say at the time it was the consensus that Google was in the lead in terms of companies developing artificial intelligence with the goal of reaching AGI?
Certainly how I felt.
Would you think that was a view that was shared by others in the tech community?
I would say it was not an uncommon view.
So after the Menlo Park dinner, you started working with Sam Altman to set up this AI research lab, right?
I would say so.
And you launched OpenAI in December of 2015.
Yes.
And you announced this launch with a post on the website, correct?
Yes.
To direct your attention to Plaintiff's Exhibit 17, which is in evidence. And this is a December 11th, 2015 blog post titled Introducing OpenAI. The post says, OpenAI is a nonprofit artificial intelligence research company. Our goal is to advance digital intelligence in a way that is most likely to benefit humanity as a whole, unconstrained by a need to generate financial return. Since our research is free from financial obligations, we can better focus on positive human impact. Did you agree with that statement at the time it was made?
Yes,
You were one of the founders, right?
that's accurate.
And the other founders were Sam Altman, right?
Amongst others, yes.
Elon Musk,
Amongst others, yes.
Ilya Sutskever. Said yes.
Yes.
And anyone else?
I would also include Wojciech Zaremba and John Schulman amongst the founders. And there was a larger founding team as well.
A few years later, in 2018, OpenAI published on its website something called the OpenAI Charter. I want to direct your attention to Plaintiff's Exhibit 24, which the parties have stipulated may be admitted into evidence.
It's admitted, and just so that you know, we have 3 minutes, Mr. Mull.
And the charter states that this is OpenAI's statement of its mission and its strategy toward its mission in 2018, correct?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find the words.
I think it should be right in front of you where it says OpenAI Charter. Our charter describes the principles we use to execute on OpenAI's mission.
Yes, it describes the principles we use to execute on OpenAI's mission.
And this too was posted on OpenAI's website.
Yes, still is today.
And you personally worked on crafting the language in the charter, right?
Yes, I certainly helped write this.
And the charter describes the way that OpenAI had been operating since it was founded in 2015.
I'm not sure exactly how to characterize that.
Let's go to the charter, please. If we can go to the first paragraph at the top where it says OpenAI's mission. It states OpenAI's mission is to ensure that artificial general intelligence, by which we mean highly autonomous systems that outperform humans at most economically valuable work, benefits all humanity. We will attempt to directly build safe and beneficial AGI, but also consider our mission fulfilled if our work aids others to achieve this outcome. To that end, we commit to the following principles. Was that any different from the way OpenAI had been functioning since it was founded?
I would say we refined the words. The previous paragraph, we say that this reflects the strategy we've refined over the past 2 years. I think we really started with a grand mission, but without certainty on how we would achieve it, right? The thing that Elon used to say is that we should take the actions that will maximize the probability of a good future. But what are those actions? Maximize the probability of a good future. But what are those actions? And I think that was what was left to myself and to Ilya in large part to figure out.
Okay. Now at the time, it's 10 o'clock for the break.
It's 10 o'clock, break time.
Okay. Members of the jury, we'll go ahead and take our first break for 20 minutes. If everyone will please rise for the jury.
Please rise for the jury. Thank you, maybe.
When you're in the middle of your examination with opposing counsel, that means that you were instructed not to have any discussions with anyone, including your lawyers, regarding your examination. You understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
We'll stand in recess for just shy of 20 minutes so I can get the jury out here in 20 minutes, okay?
Your Honor, may I raise one thing briefly?
You may.
Mr. Mollo elicited the value of Mr. Brockman's stake. We assume that we are now permitted to elicit the value of the nonprofit's stake in the for-profit.
We're probably not asking him that question. The question that I asked him was one that court recognized that it's got an interest in this company and the outcome of this litigation, for that matter. So
He put a dollar value.
that's the question I asked.
Well, the dollar value goes to motive, just like I allowed that dollar value to be asked of your side, Mr. Musk. Mr. Brockman, go ahead and leave the courtroom, please. Money impacts credibility and motive. That's why that question was allowed. What is it that you want to raise specifically?
We would just like to elicit the value of the nonprofit stake in the for-profit, the same entity that Mr. Brockman has a stake in.
I don't see how that comes in. It's not an issue of motive.
Your Honor, it does go to his credibility and motive, because part of the picture that they would like to paint for the jury is that Mr. Brockman, Mr. Altman, others have looted the nonprofit. In fact, the nonprofit's value has grown along with the value of the equity in for-profit that Mr. Brockman has.
And what do you anticipate the answer to that question is?
It will be approximately $200 billion.
Response.
Your Honor, may I respond after the break?
You may.
Thank you.
Court is in recess. Please remain seated and come to order. Court is back in session.
We're back on the record. The record will reflect that the jury's not here. Mr. Mueller, response.
We don't think there's any reason to introduce that through this witness at this time, Your Honor. It's not relevant.
Objection? That's your only objection?
Yes.
Overruled.
Thank you.
Okay, bring the jury in. I need my witness. Where's the witness?
Witness is on his way. He's just in the washroom.
Yeah, just wait for Mr. Planko to get back. To the stand, Mr. Brockman. Okay, you may all be seated. Fine, you're spelling your oath. You may proceed.
The charter that we were looking at a few months ago, that was consistent with the articles of incorporation of OpenAI, weren't they? Wasn't it?
I don't think I ever did a side-by-side comparison, but I would believe so, yes.
Okay, let me show you Plaintiff's Exhibit 16. And these are admitted into evidence. It's the Delaware Articles of Incorporation for OpenAI Inc. Go to the second paragraph. And we go to the sentence that starts the specific, do we have it highlighted, please? Third paragraph, excuse me, says the specific purpose. We have it. The specific purpose of the corporation is to provide funding for research, development, and distribution of technology related to artificial intelligence. The resulting technology will benefit the public, and the corporation will seek to open source technology for the public benefit when applicable. The corporation is not organized for the private gain of any person. Is that consistent with your understanding of how OpenAI conducted its affairs to the time of the charter?
I think this is still accurate, but yes, the OpenAI nonprofit, this is absolutely accurate.
It's a promise that was made to the world, right?
I'm uncertain whether this constitutes a promise, but this certainly is descriptive of what I believe the OpenAI nonprofit has done and continues to do.
Certainly what you were telling people that the nonprofit was going to do, correct?
Again, that's a specific characterization I'd have to think a little bit more about, but I do stand by this is what we've been doing with the OpenAI nonprofit.
If we go back to the charter, please. Can we go back to the charter, please? And we go into where it says that about your fiduciary duty. If you look at the second paragraph under broadly distributed benefits, it says our primary fiduciary duty is to humanity. What did you understand that to mean?
Well, I think the technology that we are developing is transformative. You know, this is going to be the most important technological shift in human history. And I think that that is something that's kind of bigger than corporations, bigger than corporate structures, bigger than really any individual, right? This is really about humanity as a whole. And I think that we've always held ourselves to that standard of really trying to think about how do we ensure that what we're doing is beneficial to humanity? Like that is why we started this company.
And the donations that you solicited were based on the fact that you believed you had this fiduciary duty to humanity?
Again, that's sort of drawing a very specific inference, but we definitely wanted people who were aligned with our view on what this technology could be and what it should be.
You were a member of the board of the nonprofit?
Not at its founding, but I did become a member of the board, yes.
And you were an OpenAI executive, right?
That is also accurate.
Do you believe it's possible that you breached your duty to humanity?
I do not believe that that happened, no.
Do you believe that the approximately $30 billion stake that you have in the for-profit that was designed to fund the nonprofit breaches your fiduciary duty to humanity?
No, I believe that we have created the most well-resourced nonprofit in history. It's over $150 billion worth of equity value.
Oh,
And that's a pretty
A
significant
goal, excuse me, sir.
pending. Go ahead. Next.
So goal of OpenAI was to recruit the top people in the world to fulfill its mission, right?
That was certainly an instrumental goal. That is not the final goal of what we're trying to accomplish.
No, but it was something that was important, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to achieve this mission, that would definitely take the top people in the world.
I'm sorry.
That would absolutely require the best people in the world in this field.
That meant the best scientists, right?
Amongst others, yes.
And the top people are in demand, right?
Absolutely.
Given your limited experience and success before you had joined OpenAI, you personally were not going to be a draw to attract the top talent, were you?
I'm not certain about that characterization.
Elon helped OpenAI recruit top talent, didn't he?
Certainly we asked him to, and he did help.
Okay. I'd like to ask you about Plaintiff's Exhibit 67, which the parties have stipulated may be admitted. It's an email from Elon to Mr. Sutskever and you and others. And he writes, our most important consideration is recruitment of the best people. The output of any company is the vector sum of the people within it. If we are able to attract the most talented people over time, our direction is correctly aligned and OpenAI will prevail. That was consistent with the sentiment you saw him express throughout his involvement in OpenAI, wasn't it?
I'm definitely not certain about that.
Okay. In the next paragraph, he says, To this end, please give a look through who should join. If I could be helpful with recruitment or anything else, I am at your disposal. And you used Elon to attract top talent, didn't you?
We certainly asked him to help with closing certain candidates, yes.
And you thought that offering the candidates the chance to speak with Elon would increase the probability that they would join OpenAI.
Well, honestly, he was very polarizing. There were certain candidates who were very attracted, certain candidates who were very turned off.
He did, in fact, meet with many of the candidates for the founding team while they were undecided about whether to join, right?
In fact, yes. And that's actually what got Elon more excited about being involved.
Okay. Of the candidates you hoped would join the founding team, how many of them were recruited by Elon?
Oh, I'm not sure if I would say any of them were recruited by him, but he certainly helped with many of them.
Okay. All but one, right?
All but one ended up joining, yes.
People were excited about the prospect of working with Elon?
Again, it's very person specific. Some people certainly.
Who's Dirk Kingma?
He was one of the founding team members.
Okay. He came to OpenAI and was actually part of that founding team, you say?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'd like to ask you about Plaintiff's Exhibit 66, which the parties have stipulated may be admitted. Okay, proceed, Your Honor. These are December 2015 emails between you, Mr. Suskever, Sam Altman, and Dirk Kingma. And direct your attention to the third email in the chain. He's providing some of his reasons for wanting to join OpenAI. He then says, Elon's involvement is awesome. It's an honor to be part of this team. See that?
I do see those words, yes.
And there's a long email from you starting near the top, dated December 3rd of 2015. She goes 7 paragraphs down. You actually quote Elon, his words in recruiting Mr. King, when you say, on the time allocation front, I've decided to dedicate whatever amount of time that is materially useful, even though it will come at some cost to SpaceX and Tesla, if I really believe that this is potentially the biggest near-term existential threat, then action should follow belief. And that's what you wrote, right?
Yes, I did quote those words.
Okay. In addition to getting the recruits to join OpenAI, you asked Elon to help them with visas for recruitment too, right? Visas, VISAS. I'd like to ask you about Plaintiff's Exhibit 74, which the parties have stipulated may be admitted. Okay. These are May 2016 emails between you and Elon Musk. And on the bottom email, you write to Elon to ask him to sign the O1 visa reference letter for someone named Ludwig Pedersen. See that?
I do see that.
And you wrote to Elon that Mr. Pedersen was the best person I know at visual and UX design. He agreed to sign the visa letter for Mr. Pedersen, right?
He did.
And he said, I'm happy to sign any one letters, right?
He wrote those words.
And Elon also exhibited great leadership at OpenAI, didn't he?
What do you mean?
Well, you and Elon and Mr. Suskever met regularly, didn't you?
We certainly had regular meetings, also often including Sam Altman and other people sometimes too.
He helped guide the strategic direction of the company, right?
Again, I think that is a broad characterization.
Well, before OpenAI, you'd never actually founded a company, right?
This was certainly the first serious company that I founded, yes.
You'd only worked at one company, and that was Stripe, right?
I'm not sure if that's a fair characterization.
Your meetings with Elon about OpenAI helped you personally learn and grow, right?
Certainly, there was a lot that I learned from Elon.
And you considered it an honor to work alongside Elon, didn't you?
I remember writing those words.
And you were humbled that he saw potential in you and in Ilya?
This sounds like a quote from something I wrote. Would it be okay if we saw it with context?
Sure. But what I just said is true, right? You wouldn't have written false words to him, would you?
I would certainly not write false words to him, but it might be nice to see the actual words so that I know if what you read was
So I'm
exactly.
going to direct your attention to
You all need to stop speaking over each other. What's the question?
directing your attention to Plaintiff's Exhibit 99, which is in evidence. This is a January 1st, 2018 email from you to Elon Musk, correct?
Yes.
You wrote it, right?
Yes.
In the email, you say, in every meeting with you, I continue to learn, grow, and see the world in a new way. I particularly admire your clarity of purpose, the simple and consistent heuristics you use to evaluate decisions, and that you stick to what's right rather than what's easy. What do you mean by the word heuristics?
Simple decision-making rules.
You told him it was an honor to work alongside him, correct?
Yes.
You remember that Elon provided a substantial majority of OpenAI's funding in its first few years?
Elon certainly provided a lot of funding.
Okay. Totaled about $38 million, is that right?
I believe that was the sum total that he provided, yes.
Can you briefly tell the jury what compute is?
It's computational power. It's kind of the underlying fuel of the AI that we build.
And compute is important to the development of AI, right?
Yeah, we really learned how important it was sometime 2016, 2017 is really when we realized that that was going to be the resource that we most needed to grow and we're unable to do.
It's essential to developing AI technology.
That is what we learned.
Elon helped OpenAI get compute that it needed, right?
There were certainly, really dollars at the end of the day were the most important thing. And I think Elon helped us sort of get some amount of compute amongst other people as well who helped.
I'm going to direct you to Plaintiff's Exhibit 90, which the parties have stipulated may be admitted. This is a June 28, 2017 email from you to Elon. And you say, awesome, thanks, we'll get back to you shortly. That's responding from an email, from Elon to you, where he says, just spoke to Satya and talked about OpenAI needing won the order of 10,000 servers with the latest NVIDIA GPUs to beat the best human players at competitive esports games. You recall that email?
I do.
You recall the situation?
I absolutely do.
And Mr. Musk was reaching out to Satya Nadella, who was the CEO of Microsoft at the time, right?
Yes.
And he goes on to say, he said he'd talk internally and get back to me soon. Please send me the ideal spec for the individual servers and how they are connected. What ideally do we want Microsoft to do? Sounds like there's a good chance they will do it. And you say, awesome. Why was that awesome?
Well, we were very much looking for more computational power at the time. We didn't really have the funding to go very big. I believe Sam Altman ended up negotiating a deal here that got us like 80% off or something like that on a lot of computational power, which was very significant.
Not at this time. This time, Mr. Musk is talking to Satya Nadella because you needed the compute to compete in a game called Dota, right?
But I believe both of them participated in this, yes.
And without that compute, it would have been difficult, if not impossible, for OpenAI to compete successfully against humans, right?
We certainly needed a lot of compute.
And eventually you did compete in the game and you won the game, and that was a big milestone for OpenAI, wasn't it?
Certainly.
The reason you got the compute was because Elon picked up the phone and called Satya Nadella, right?
He certainly contributed. I'm not sure if it is true that that was the only way we would get it.
That is the way you did get it, right?
Again, I've stated Elon participated in getting it. Sam participated in getting it. Grateful to both of them.
Elon picked up the phone and called Satya Nadella and made this happen, right?
Elon certainly spoke to Satya, yes.
Okay. And could you have picked up the phone and called Satya Nadella at that time? Would he be taking your call?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that question.
Well, you didn't know Satya Nadella at that point in time.
I did not know Satya personally at that time, no.
So the OpenAI team also asked Elon to reach out to NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang to obtain a cutting-edge supercomputer that NVIDIA made, right?
That's right. Yeah, the DGX-1.
And at Elon's request, Mr. Huang made sure that OpenAI received one of the first available supercomputers that they were making in that line, right?
Yes, it was symbolically important, but a small amount of compute relative to what we had.
Okay. Do you think Mr. Huang could have picked you out of a crowd of two at that time?
I didn't know Jensen at the time, no.
Okay. When that was founded, Sam Altman did not work there full time, did he?
No.
In fact, you can't be confident he spent 10 hours a week on site at OpenAI, could you?
I don't know if I would say more than 10 a week on site.
Do you consider yourself personally loyal to Sam Altman?
I don't know that I would say it quite like that.
Consider yourself close?
Certainly.
Sam Altman personally paid some of your compensation at OpenAI out of his own pocket, didn't he?
I think there's a lot of context here.
That's not my question. My question is, he personally paid some of your compensation at OpenAI out of his own pocket, correct?
I'm also uncertain whether that characterization is precise.
Okay, well, he gave you an interest in some investments of his family office, didn't he?
Again, context, but yes.
In 2017, the value of that equity that Sam Altman gave you was around $10 million, right?
That is what I was told.
You didn't tell Elon about the fact that you got that payment from Sam, did you?
I did not discuss my compensation with Elon.
I'm going to show you Plaintiff's Exhibit 350, which the parties have stipulated may be admitted. Proceed, Your Honor. These are August 18, 2017 emails between you, Elon, and Jared Burchell. You know who Jared Burchell was? Mr. Elon's head of his family office?
Yes.
In the bottom email, Mr. Burchell informs Elon that Sam Altman has compensated you on the side. He says, I had a fairly extensive conversation with Sam Altman yesterday in an attempt to understand his thinking on numbers. I can share greater detail when we meet today. But one thing worth mentioning now is that he compensated Greg on the side. Greg is you, right?
That is me.
And giving him, meaning you, a percentage ownership of the LLC that holds the assets of Sam's personal family office, a stake which Sam equates to $10 million. Right?
Are you asking, did you write those words, or are you asking if I agree?
I said that's what it states, right?
I think you read those words correctly, yes.
And then he says, naturally, Greg is going to have greater allegiance towards Sam as a result of this arrangement. And then the responsive email, Elon forwards the email to you, correct?
Yes.
And we don't see it on the screen there, but we can if we want. He's actually forwarding Jared Burchell's email to you, and accompanying that, he writes 2 question marks, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you respond, my original offer was $175,000 in salary. You go through it, talk about even if valued at $10 million, it does not materially affect my personal financial situation. And then in the last paragraph, you say, I'm not that motivated by money, but I am motivated by fairness. And it would have felt bad for me to get nothing after YC stock ran out. FWIW, which means for what it's worth, right? I am, and you put asterisks around that, motivated by public recognition for my own work, as I mentioned before, the DOTA announcement. That's what you wrote, right?
I believe you read the words correctly. I think you might have skipped over some words, but
okay. Which words did I skip over? I don't want to skip over any words. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if you read the whole, the first paragraph in its entirety.
That's right. I didn't suggest that I was. You thought it was fair for you to have a side deal with Sam Altman personally compensating you that you concealed from your co-founder, Elon Musk?
Well, I certainly don't agree with any of that characterization.
But Elon Musk didn't know about this, right?
We had never discussed compensation directly, and certainly, as you see here, that we shared this information with him when we were asked.
He forwarded Jared's email to you with question marks. Would he have done that if he knew
Objection.
about this?
Argument.
As to the form.
Okay. Would it make any sense for someone to send you an email informing him about this financial situation, which his advisor is telling him means that you have more loyalty to Sam Altman than you do to Elon Musk? He sends you question marks.
Objection to form.
Did you think that that was an indication that he was fully aware of what was going on? You conceal this from Elon.
No.
Well, he certainly didn't know about it.
That's also true.
And don't you think it would be material to know that someone that you were in this business relationship with had a specific loyalty to someone else who was compensating them?
Well, the thing that misses is that Elon's time was relatively hard to get. And so there was a lot of decisions that we had to make that we weren't necessarily able to broadcast fully to him. This was certainly one that was a decision that we made. But we never discussed my original compensation. We never discussed the modification to the compensation that was fulfilling the original agreement. We never discussed the modification to that original compensation offer either.
So his time was limited, and that was why you didn't send him a 1 or 2 paragraph email explaining the situation?
I think my statement is just that this one, again, was not something that rose to the level of obviously we need to broadcast this to Elon or me.
When you say broadcast this to Elon, it's really disclosing to him that you have a side deal with Sam Altman he doesn't know about, right?
Again, that's just not how I would characterize it.
Not how you characterize it, but that's what happened, right?
I just disagree.
Were there other things that you deceived Elon about?
No.
Objection.
Sustained as to the form.
Were you always forthright in your dealings with him?
Yes.
Tell him the truth all the time.
Always told him the truth. I think there was exactly one thing that we did not proactively broadcast to him, that's what I would say.
Sure about that?
I would say that there is one thing
Okay.
that is on my mind, yes.
At some point in 2017, you and Ilya concluded that OpenAI needed additional funding, right?
I would say that we concluded it, Elon and Sam concluded it. I think we all kind of came to the same conclusion here.
Okay. And you had discussions over many months over how to address that issue, correct?
Absolutely.
And that began in 2017, ended sometime in 2018. 2018. Is that right?
You could say that.
They occurred through chats, emails, phone conversations, group chats. Is that correct?
All the above and more.
It wasn't like you were convening some kind of a board meeting and going through specific proposals. This was a brainstorming, correct?
I don't know if we ever actually had board meetings at the time, but these were very explicit, very intense conversations for a long period of time.
Okay. You discussed some possibilities around an AI hardware company called Cerebras. Is that right?
Yes.
What was Cerebras?
Cerebras was and is a maker of specialized compute hardware for machine learning.
You discussed possibly somehow acquiring Cerebras or merging with it.
We did.
When you were having these discussions about some kind of a financial transaction with Cerebras at OpenAI, you were actually an owner of Cerebras, weren't you?
There was some overlap between discussions and being an investor in Cerebras, yes.
When did the discussions begin?
I think we first mentioned it back in like March of 2017 at an offsite.
As part of this case, you submitted a sworn interrogatory response identifying your financial interests in companies that have done business with OpenAI, right?
Yes.
In fact, you just updated it a few days ago, right?
Yes.
I'm going to direct you to Plaintiff's Exhibit 390. You have it? Okay, which is stipulated and to by the parties. May I inquire? I'm going to direct you to page 8. But first of all, if we go back 1 second, just to cover. If we go to the cover 1 second. This is actually your fourth, if we go to the lower right corner, your fourth amended supplemental responses and objections to the interrogatories, which are disclosing your financial interests, right?
That's what it says.
Okay. And directing your attention to page 8, that's your signature, right?
Yes.
And you verified this document, swore that it was true, just like you took your oath in court here today, right?
Yes.
On page 2, these responses state that you acquired your ownership in Cerebras on March 17th of 2017. You see that?
Yes.
So as a Cerebras investor, you had a conflict in advocating that OpenAI merge with Cerebras, didn't you?
I believe I told Siobhan that I was a Cerebras investor, yes.
You believe you told Siobhan. You didn't tell Elon.
Again, Elon is sometimes hard to get a hold of, but telling Siobhan, telling Sam Teller, in general, we viewed that as telling Elon.
Can you point to an email in which you told Elon that you were an owner of Cerebras at the same time that you were advocating that Cerebras and OpenAI do a transaction together?
Once again, I did talk about this with Siobhan.
But that's not my question, sir. My question to you, sir, is can you point to an email in which you told Elon that you owned Cerebras, you're an owner of Cerebras, at the same time you were advocating that OpenAI do this transaction with Cerebras?
I do not believe that an email that says that exists.
How about a chat? Did you send Elon a chat?
Again, I did not send.
Did you send him a text?
No.
Okay. And yet you stood to gain personally if there was a transaction by OpenAI with Cerebras, right?
I suppose so, but it wasn't something on my mind.
You discussed other possibilities besides merging with Cerebras, didn't you?
Certainly.
the group also discussed incorporating a for-profit entity that would support the nonprofit, right?
I've actually never heard this support the nonprofit terminology prior to this lawsuit.
So you thought that it would be okay to incorporate a for-profit entity, take the assets of the nonprofit, and not be accountable for your actions?
Objection.
Form. Overall.
Again, I'm not quite certain about that characterization. We were trying to solve for the mission. Like, that is what we've been doing this whole time. Solve for the mission.
So I just want to understand. You thought it was okay, and you were solving for the mission, if you took the assets of the nonprofit, moved them into a for-profit that you incorporated, and you could just go on your merry way and operate the for-profit?
Objection. Form.
You think that was okay?
I sustain
Okay.
objection as
All
a
right.
form.
Did you think it was okay, though, to use the assets of the nonprofit to benefit yourself and others in the for-profit?
Absolutely not. Mechanically, I think it's very important that the nonprofit benefits from any transaction here.
And you benefited to the tune of $30 billion from the transactions here, didn't you?
No.
Okay.
It's, he's already answered. But let's try not to be argumentative in the questions.
You discussed, I'm sorry, you discussed something called an initial coin offering that was part of the discussions, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's an initial coin offering?
It's if you create a crypto coin of some form and offer it to the public.
A lot of those are sort of dodgy enterprises, is that right?
That was one concern that we had, yes.
And Elon vetoed that idea for that reason, right?
Not quite how it worked.
Okay. You discussed some kind of a transaction with Tesla, right?
Elon definitely pushed that very hard, yes.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah, am I sure about which?
And this was the four of you having these discussions, right? You, Sam, Ilya, and Elon?
Yes, with Sam Teller and Siobhan also in the mix somewhere.
Right. But I just want to be clear. You said Elon pushed that very hard. So that would mean that everybody's in the loop on this, right?
As in, sorry, is the question, did Elon actually push the Tesla thing hard, or was everyone in the loop on what Elon wanted?
I stand corrected. I should ask you a clear question. The first question to you is, you said Elon pushed this very hard. So I take it he pushed it very hard to the group because you were all solving for some way to find better funding for OpenAI, right?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of pairwise conversations, Ilya and me talking to Elon directly, but it was definitely common knowledge amongst that group when Elon suggested that OpenAI should merge. It was definitely common knowledge amongst that group when Elon suggested that OpenAI should merge into Tesla.
Okay. And you discussed ramping up fundraising efforts at the OpenAI nonprofit, right? That's something that you suggested.
So that was a thing that I suggested. Again, there's a lot of events that are all being conflated here, so maybe a time frame could be helpful.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about the time frame when you're discussing how to come up with funding for the nonprofit, right? This is 2017 to 2018. All right.
Would it be helpful if I gave kind of a breakdown of different moments where different things were suggested?
No, but your lawyer will get a chance to ask you questions, and if your lawyer thinks it's helpful, they'll ask you that. But I just want to be clear that these discussions were among certainly the four of you. You mentioned Zillis and Teller as well, and that all of these ideas were kicked around among you.
Many ideas were discussed.
Okay. And the Tesla idea of some sort of transaction with Tesla never went anywhere, correct?
We did not consummate that, no.
Okay. So in these conversations that you had about the creation of a new for-profit entity, you and Mr. Suscover pushed for an ownership interest or equity in this for-profit, correct?
I'm not sure if I would say it that way.
Okay. Well, you thought that if anyone was going to be getting equity in the new for-profit, it would only be fair that you would get it, correct?
This also sounds like something that I wrote. Is it okay if we see it in context?
Well, I'm just asking you that was how you felt, that if anyone was going to be getting equity in this for-profit, it would only be fair that you would, right?
Again, I think that there's some context here.
That's not my question. My question to you is, you felt that if anyone was going to be getting equity in the new for-profit, it would only be fair if you got equity.
It certainly seemed unfair if there would be some differential there. Yes.
So you and Mr. Susscover prepared a table for Elon showing him your proposal for an equity split of this for-profit, right?
I believe there had been multiple back and forth at that point, and he asked us to do that, yes.
Okay. The question was, you prepared a table showing a proposed equity split, didn't you?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to show you Plaintiff's Exhibit 153, which is an evidence. This is a September 11th, 2000 email from Jared Burchell to Elon with the subject line, OpenAI cap table. And this is a reformatted version of the proposal that you prepared for Elon. If we go to the next page. And can we make that larger, please, the first box? So you propose that you have a 10% ownership share in the for-profit, right?
I think more like 11.
11%, okay. And under this proposal, 33.33% of the equity was to be based on a financial investment by you. You would write a check, right?
Sorry, what number did you say?
3.33, excuse me.
That was the proposal, yes.
Okay. And the remaining 7.68% was going to be given to you based on your work founding OpenAI, sort of sweat equity, right?
It wasn't really about work done to date. It was more about anticipated future work.
Okay. Under this proposal, Elon was to receive 51.2% of the equity in the OpenAI for-profit, right?
That's what it shows here.
He'd be providing the funding, and that was your proposal, right?
Again, this was a counter proposal to things that he had suggested.
This was your proposal, right?
I'm not certain whether to characterize a counter proposal as a proposal.
You were proposing this as the split of the equity, whether you call it a counter proposal or something else. This is what you were putting forth.
This was one turn of proposal, yes.
All right. During these discussions about creating OpenAI for profit, Mr. Altman pushed to be the CEO, right?
I don't know if I would say it that way.
Well, he wanted to be the CEO and said so, right?
He did come to the conclusion that that's what he wanted, yes.
And Elon thought that he should be the CEO initially, at least, right?
He certainly came to that conclusion.
And during the discussions, he told you his interest was in safe AGI, not in fame or money. Is that right?
He certainly told me a lot of things.
Okay. But it included that his interest was in safe AI and not money, right?
Again, I'm not certain exactly how to characterize it.
But just to be clear, at this point in time, Mr. Musk had already founded SpaceX, right?
Yes.
And he'd founded Tesla and taken Tesla public, correct?
Yes.
And he had founded Zip2 and sold that for $300 million, right?
Yes.
And he'd also founded eBay and sold that for founded PayPal and sold that to eBay for $1.5 billion,
Objection.
right? That's what it was. He'd founded PayPal and they'd sold that for $1.5 billion, right?
I believe that's correct, yes.
So at the time that you were trying to find a way to fund this charity, Elon Musk was already a very wealthy man, wasn't he?
Well, again, I'm not sure if I agree with the characterization of the purpose of this, but Elon also told us what he wanted the money for.
I'm just asking you, he was a wealthy man, wasn't he?
Yes.
All right. And you had, whatever wealth you had did not come anywhere near what Elon Musk had.
Certainly.
The same was true for Ilya Sutskever and Sam Altman, right?
I don't know enough about their respective financial positions to comment.
I'm going to show you Exhibit 154, which the parties have stipulated may be admitted. This is part of a journal you kept on your laptop. Started keeping it around 10, right?
Yes.
And sometimes you took, we're going to zoom in on it. You're not going to have just this blurry page in front of you. So sometimes you took real-time notes in the journal, right?
You could say that, yes.
And other times you wrote things down after they happened, like after you had a meeting or a phone call, you'd write it down.
Lots of different things in here.
Okay. You'd use it to keep notes on the developments in your professional life, right?
This was actually a very personal document. It covered my personal life and professional life.
Right. And on page 3, which is date stamp 39366, you took real-time notes of a call with Elon Musk and Ilya Sutskever. And page 5, you write, Elon, not looking for awards, praise, anything else. My reasons for doing this are because my number one thing keeping me awake at night is AGI. This is his word, you wrote it down, what the fuck are we gonna do? Sure hope this ends up mitigating that. But by mitigating that, he's talking about OpenAI, right?
Objection.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Sure. When he says sure hopes, I'm sorry.
Jane, to add to the form.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Your understanding of what you wrote down there, calling his conversation, was, and when he says sure hopes this ends up mitigating that, he meant that OpenAI would mitigate this risk of AGI, right?
Objection. Form.
Not as to his understanding, overruled. It's an appropriate question.
I would say that the goal was to ensure that AGI benefits all of humanity. That was the goal.
Okay, that wasn't my question. My question was, when you wrote this down, that reflected your understanding of what Elon Musk was saying, is that he sure hopes this ends up mitigating that. And he was talking about the risks from AGI.
Yeah, I think that mitigating the risks, maximizing the benefits is a correct characterization.
And then he went on to say, the word I doesn't appear. It's don't want any awards, anything, right?
I see those words.
Okay. He told you that if you created this new for-profit entity, that it should still be essentially a philanthropic endeavor, right?
No.
Okay. Well, if we go to page 6, there's a note there that says, Elon, coming weeks, top priority, got to figure out how do we transition from nonprofit to something which is essentially philanthropic endeavor. See that?
I do see those words.
And that's right after Elon : That's how you showed that the words were coming from Elon Musk.
It is accurate that this is all from Elon, yes.
Okay. So he did say that it was important that it remain essentially a philanthropic endeavor.
No.
He did say, but you just wrote it down. He didn't say that.
May I provide context?
No, you can ask your lawyer to, have you explain anything. I'd like an answer to my question. This is the way this process works right now. He says that. That's what you recorded it, right?
Sorry, I want to make sure I'm answering the correct question. Could you ask it one more time?
It says Elon : coming weeks, top priority, got to figure out how do we transition from nonprofit to something which is essentially a philanthropic endeavor, right?
You inserted the word A. But other than that, that was an accurate reading.
Okay. And you recorded what he said. That's what you were doing here. You were recording the conversation.
These were real-time notes on what he said.
All right. And he also said in real time that must tell the story and not lose moral high ground. Absolutely vital, right?
But you've also skipped some words.
That's certainly not my intention. You said must tell the story and not lose moral high ground. Absolutely vital. Did he not say that?
You said that, but just in the previous sentence, the and is B Corp or C Corp or something.
Did you believe that OpenAI needed to retain the moral high ground?
I thought that retaining that the moral high ground was an amazing tool and something that to me felt important. Like, why did we start this place? It's for our mission. That's what we still do.
Do you believe that OpenAI has retained the moral high ground by allowing you to have this ownership stake valued at close to $30 billion?
I believe we have maintained the moral high ground.
At some point in December of 2017, you were close to reaching an agreement among the four of you about creating this for-profit subsidiary to support the nonprofit, right?
I would not characterize it like that.
Well, you did get to a point where you were close to an agreement on the ownership stake, right?
I'd say that Ilya, Elon, and I got very close to an agreement of doing this together.
Okay. And Sam was kept in the loop?
Sam was kept in the loop.
I'm showing you exhibits 157, or exhibit 157, plaintiffs 157, which is an evidence. Now, this is a September 20th, 2017 email from Elon to you, Mr. Suskever, Mr. Altman, Sam Teller, and Siobhan Zillis. And in it, he writes to you in response to an email that you had sent, either go do something on your own or continue with OpenAI as a nonprofit. I will no longer fund OpenAI until you have made a firm commitment to stay, or I'm just being a fool who is essentially providing free funding for you to create a startup. So Elon was giving you an ultimatum, wasn't he?
I don't know how to characterize that.
Well, he told you either go do something on your own or continue with OpenAI as a nonprofit. You had two choices, right?
That's what he said at the time.
Okay. And over the next couple of days, you told Siobhan Zillis that you wanted to continue with a nonprofit, right?
We said that we were interested in, we were not planning on leaving the nonprofit. That's what we said we were not planning to leave the nonprofit. Yes.
Well, when you say you were not planning to leave the nonprofit, that meant that you were committed to continuing with the nonprofit, right?
No.
Okay, so you were going to defy his ultimatum.
I wouldn't think of it like that.
You told Elon directly that you would continue with the nonprofit and try to get more results there, didn't you?
Yeah, about 2 months later, and a lot had changed in the meanwhile. Elon had offered other things. We talked about the possibility of reopening the B Corp conversations. We did decide that we wanted to see, could we raise more in the nonprofit? We proceeded to do so.
Let me show you Plaintiff's Exhibit 161, which the parties have stipulated can be admitted into evidence. This is Your Honor, may I proceed? This is a November 6, 2017 entry from your journal. And on page 9, you took notes on the meeting with Elon and Ilya Suskever. And if we could just back up out a little bit more so we can see what this is. It says under post-meeting, okay, that's what I said. It says post-meeting. There we go. So this is after a meeting that you had with Ilya and Elon, correct?
Yes.
And you wrote, and again, this is your word, not mine, shit, I feel so good. The meeting was simple. We said that we wanted to get more results in the nonprofit and to fundraise there, right?
I wrote those words, yes.
And directing you to page 10 of your notes from this meeting, they continue. At the bottom of the page, You wrote BTW, which means by the way, right?
Yes.
Another realization from this is that IT apostrophe D, be wrong to steal the nonprofit from him, to convert to B Corp without him. That'd be pretty morally bankrupt, and he's really not an idiot. The him you were referring to is Elon, right?
Yes.
By morally bankrupt, did you mean totally unscrupulous and lacking integrity?
I'm not sure.
By morally bankrupt, did you mean devoid of any decency or honor to fulfill the OpenAI mission?
You're going to object to the form.
Oh,
I think I meant it would actually serve the mission, but it'd be hard to look at yourself in the mirror.
It would be hard to look at yourself in the mirror because you'd be failing to fulfill your duty to further the charitable mission of OpenAI, right?
The opposite.
Okay. And then when you said he's really not an idiot, did you mean he would have to be an idiot to let you steal the nonprofit from him if he knew you were doing it?
No.
When you said he's really not an idiot, did you mean to say that only an idiot would allow you to steal a charity?
No.
And when you said he's really not an idiot, did you mean to say it's not surprising that when you took the steps that you did in 2023 with the Microsoft deal,
Objection.
enriched yourself by over $20 billion, that you'd find yourself in this courtroom today answering for your misdeeds?
I'm
I'm going to show you Plaintiff's Exhibit 164, which the parties have stipulated may be admitted. This is a January 31st, 2000 email from you to Elon Musk copying others. On the second page, you told Elon, under the heading Moral High Ground, our best tool is the moral high ground. To retain this, we must try our best to remain a non-profit. You said that to him, right?
There was a slight edit in there, but otherwise, yes.
Okay. And you said AI is going to shake up the fabric of society, and our fiduciary duty should be to humanity, right?
Yes.
So you knew that it would be wrong to tell Elon that you were committed to the nonprofit if that wasn't true, right?
I'm not sure that I have such a connection.
You're not sure what? Excuse me.
I'm not sure that I have such a connection.
I'm going to direct you back to Exhibit 161. And this is your journal entry of November 6th of 2017. On page 3, you wrote, we can make that larger, please. Oh, there we go. Cannot say that we are committed to the nonprofit, don't want to say that we're committed. If 3 months later we're doing a B Corp, then it was a lie. You wrote that, right?
Yes.
On page 4 of your journal entry, you wrote, can't see us turning this into a for-profit without a very nasty fight, right?
Yes.
And that fight would be with Elon, right?
Yes.
Because he wanted to retain the nonprofit, right?
No.
Where's you?
I really don't think I would say that.
Okay, I'm going to show you Exhibit 151, which the parties have stipulated may be admitted. May I proceed, Your Honor? This is an August 21st, 2000 entry, August 21st, 2017 entry from your journal. So back in August of 2017, you wrote in your journal, we can, this is the only chance. Can we highlight that, please? And this is the only chance we have to get out from Elon. Is he the quote, glorious, close quote, leader that I would pick? We truly have a chance to make this happen. Financially, it will take me to $1 billion. This is back in August of 2017, sir, isn't it?
It is.
And that was written while you were supposedly trying to figure out how to fund this nonprofit with a mission of developing safe open source AI for the benefit of humanity and from whom no individual would personally gain, correct?
This is when we were discussing creating a for-profit with Elon, or he was going to go quit, start his own, and then we would, I guess, create our own independent of him.
You had OpenAI, the nonprofit, you had a fiduciary duty to it, didn't you?
Yes,
In fact, you thought you had a fiduciary duty to humanity, didn't you?
still do.
And notwithstanding that fiduciary duty, rather than consider how to develop funding for the nonprofit, which needed it, you were worried about what would take me to 1 billion, right?
I disagree with your characterization.
Those numbers, aren't they financially what will take me to 1 billion?
There's more to your question, though.
No, my question is very simple. My question is, why are you supposedly solving to fund this nonprofit, which you are telling the world is there to develop safe AI on an open source basis? No one's going to profit, and it's for the benefit of humanity. You're worried about financially what will take me to 1 billion. That's my question.
Object to the form.
We were solving for the mission. We all agreed we need to create a for-profit. There was a fork in the road. Do we accept Elon's terms? We all agreed we would create a for-profit. Fork in the road. Do we accept Elon's terms, or do we reject the terms? He quits to create his own, and then we create our own. And so my thought process was, if I can reach $1 billion, I feel I'm good. I wouldn't care about A versus B. So it wasn't about the mission. It wasn't about the creation of a for-profit. Those we already decided this was the path. It was the specific instantiation of a for-profit and which one I would choose.
Yeah, move to strike the answer. When you
Oh, go ahead.
when you say if you reached 1 billion, you'd be good. Apparently you weren't, because you eventually wound up with 30 billion, right? Right?
Go ahead. Answer.
I think my point was I wouldn't be thinking about solving for that as I think I'd be happy with either of those routes from a pure financial perspective.
1 billion or 30 billion?
I mean, there's certainly a difference between the two, but my point is that we had a fork in the road. I was thinking about, this is really about almost taking a new job, right? It's signing up for a company. It's thinking about like, which of these routes do you want to take? And that was the sort of narrow focus of this particular passage.
Why not take that 29 billion, more than the billion that you said you'd be good with, and donate it to OpenAI, the charity, the nonprofit?
My statement was not about that. And
but my question is, why didn't you do that?
Well, it's interesting. I think at this time, we all spent a lot of time talking about these things. For example, Elon said he wanted $80 billion to start a city on Mars.
Question, sir. My question to you is, why didn't you take the $29 billion? You said you were good with $1 billion. Why didn't you take the $29 billion and donate it to the nonprofit that you had a fiduciary duty to for the good of humanity? Why didn't you do that?
So, two answers, if I may. Thank you.
Go right ahead. I mean, it's my question. I mean, it's a big question, really. Why wouldn't you?
It is absolutely.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Number one, if you look at what we've accomplished, that currently the OpenAI Foundation, the nonprofit, has over $150 billion worth.
You had a ruling on this issue.
Overruled.
Okay.
$150 billion worth of OpenAI equity value.
Okay.
And that's something that we have built through hard blood, sweat, and tears, like through just all this time since Elon has left. That's what we have built. And so that is my number one answer.
Okay. But that doesn't answer why you didn't take the $29 billion more than the billion you said you would be good with and donate that to the charity, to OpenAI, the nonprofit. Why didn't you donate the money? You needed more money than the billion that you would be good with?
My second answer is that when I say the billion, that was really about picking between these two roads. That I felt like one of the important things here is not just, okay, we're signed up for the mission. That's the most important thing. There's two routes to do it. Which one will I actually be happy with? Which one will I feel like, man, like this is something that I'm enthusiastic to get out of bed and actually do the work every single day? And it's hard, right? It's not an easy thing. And that's my statement. My statement is, yeah, exactly what I just said.
I'm clear. It takes $30 billion to get you out of bed in the morning, but $1 billion doesn't get you out of bed in the morning. Is that what you're saying?
That is not what I'm saying.
Why didn't you take the $29 billion over the billion that you said you were good with and donate it to the charity that you had a fiduciary duty? You're the charity, fiduciary duty. Why didn't you do that?
My statement is the same as before.
You wouldn't have had the money in the for-profit if you didn't take the assets from the nonprofit, right?
Objection.
Overruled. He hasn't really answered the question.
No, I disagree with that statement. May I explain?
You took the assets from the nonprofit, the charity. You moved them into the for-profit to create this money-making machine that resulted in you having $30 billion.
So what we did.
Don't you think you could have taken?
What? No, you asked a question.
Right. So what we did, nonprofit had taken, I think Lifetime has taken less than $150 million worth of donations. It had some IP. We created a new company, a new for-profit entity, and that actually had a valuation for these assets. So there was a contribution of the IP, basically a selling of the IP to this for-profit. So that's how the nonprofit got its stake. Right? That's $150 billion today. 150 million of investment, or donation. Sorry. $150 million worth of donation, a little less, Lifetime to the nonprofit. $150 billion worth of equity value in there. And then all this is built on more than, I think actually about $150 billion worth of cash investment, $150 billion worth of investment to this for-profit and the hard work of the team. And so that is what we did.
If you had given 29 billion, because you were good with $1 billion, it would have had $179 billion, right?
I mean, the math works the same. Yes.
Kind of like the guy that robs a bank and says, I only took $1 million. They still got $100 million in the bank, so there's no big deal, right?
So not an appropriate question. It's argumentative.
You never even gave the $100,000 that you told people you were going to give, did you?
Again, do I have an opportunity to explain?
No, my question is very simple. You told people you were going to give $100,000. You never even gave $100,000, let alone $29 billion.
I offered, and still would do it today.
Oh, you offered? It won't take your money? Is that what it is?
So I actually asked Sam right as we got started that, hey, so how do I actually donate this? He said he'd let me know when the time was.
He hasn't let you know yet.
He has not.
Do you think the two of you might get together after the hearing today? And he can ask you?
Argumentative.
All right.
Next question.
Do you think as you sit here today that maybe, given that you're good with $1 billion, you ought to give the $29 billion back to the charity?
I don't think of it like that.
You don't think of it like that? So the answer is no?
I would say that's not how I think about it.
That's not my question, it's about how you think about it. It's pretty simple. Do you think you should give the $29 billion that exceeds the billion that you're good with to OpenAI, the charity, which enabled you to get that money in the first place?
There are assumptions baked into that question.
Yes, there are.
So I'm uncertain how to answer it.
Well, it's kind of yes or no. Either You ought to give money or you shouldn't. I mean, do you have a sense of right and wrong?
Oh, I absolutely do.
Okay. And you think it's right for you to keep money that was created through this charity when you have a fiduciary duty to the charity and have a fiduciary duty to develop safe AI on an open source basis for the good of humanity where no one individual is to profit by it?
But there's just a deep mischaracterization of how this all works and what we've been doing, right? That we created a for-profit entity. The nonprofit has this huge stake. We kept the nonprofit in control, and we do the work to build a company. Like those are the facts.
Those are the facts.
Yes.
You took the employees. There's no employees in the nonprofit now, are there?
There are employees.
They're part-time employees, right?
No, there's full-time employees.
The corporate representative of OpenAI testified in the fall in his deposition that there were no full-time employees at OpenAI, the nonprofit, at that time, right?
That is true.
And then since this lawsuit's been going on, you have hired some employees to make it look like you were doing something, didn't you?
Oh,
To actually do something.
Or to actually do something, you had to be sued to do something, right?
No, I disagree. I mean, we've really been focused on the mission this whole time. I think we've made so much more progress towards that mission than I think
The mission,
many people believe.
the mission being what would get you to the billions, or the mission being OpenAI developing safe AI on an open source basis where no one is to profit for the benefit of humanity? Which mission is it?
To ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity.
No, what time did we break?
we break at 11:50. Oh, 15
Oh,
minutes.
11:50. In 2019, OpenAI launched a for-profit entity called OpenAI LP, correct?
Yes, that's when we publicly announced it.
I'm going to show you what's marked Plaintiff's Exhibit 241, which the parties have stipulated may be admitted. May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yeah.
This is OpenAI's announcement of the new for-profit entity dated March 11th of 2019, isn't it?
I would agree with that.
Okay. On the second page, it announces that OpenAI investors and it says the fundamental idea of OpenAI LP is that investors and employees can get a capped return if we succeed at our mission. What did you understand the term capped return to mean?
Well, that meant that there would be some fixed amount. There would be some limit to the amount in the future of profits that we paid out that people would be entitled to.
Okay. And at the time of this announcement, what was your position at OpenAI, the nonprofit?
I was a board member.
With a fiduciary duty to the OpenAI nonprofit board, right?
Yes.
And what was your position at OpenAI, the for-profit?
I believe I was chief technology officer.
The bottom of the second paragraph says, if we can go there, please. It says, okay, where it says, regardless of how the world evolves. This is the fundamental idea of OpenAI LP is that investors and employees can get a capped return if we succeed at our mission, which allows us to raise investment capital and attract employees with startup-like equity. But any returns beyond that amount, and if we are successful, we expect to generate orders of magnitude more value than we'd owe to people who invest in or work at OpenAI LP, are owned by the original OpenAI nonprofit. You see that?
Yes.
You agree with that statement at the time it was made?
Yes.
You agree with that statement today?
The structure has changed since then.
That is my question. My question is, do you agree with that statement today?
I'm uncertain how to answer that question.
Well, it's yes or no. Either you agree with it or you don't agree with it.
Well, so just to clarify, to make sure I'm answering the right question, are you asking, is that true of OpenAI LP?
This is the announcement of OpenAI LP, yes.
My understanding is that remains true of OpenAI LP.
On the following page, there's a purple box. Is something that you at OpenAI use, these purple boxes, to call attention to your announcements?
I'm not sure I would say that.
You're not sure you would say that, or is that what you said?
That is what I said.
Okay. In this instance, it was something that you were calling attention to your announcement, right?
It wasn't really about the announcement, no.
Well, it says important.
This was part of the investment paperwork.
Okay. And under important, it said, it says right beneath the box, it says our employee and investor paperwork start with big purple boxes like this. So does that maybe help you remember that this is something that OpenAI uses?
I stand by my testimony.
It's not your custom, but is it OpenAI's custom? Because it says that our employees and investor paperwork start with big purple boxes like this, and you were a senior executive there. Is it a false statement that they were making to the world?
No, I said that it's part of the paperwork. You asked whether it's part of our announcement.
Okay, but it is something that OpenAI uses regularly to call attention to things that it thinks are important in documents, right?
I think that's an overly broad statement. I think it is accurate to say this is part of our employee and investor paperwork, certainly at the time.
Well, I just want to be clear, because it says our employee and investor paperwork start with big purple boxes like this. So either you did or you didn't do that.
Objection. Form.
I'm sorry, I'm still confused by the question.
Sure.
May I tell you why I'm confused?
Go right ahead.
If your question is this our general way that we call attention to important things? I'm really not certain about that. If this is for our employee and investor paperwork, how we call attention to the mission and how we think about it, then I would say yes.
Okay. So it's used with other documents, right? It's a purple box.
I am not certain.
All right. This box was included on the employee and investor paperwork for the OpenAI LP, right?
That is my understanding, yes.
And it says right there at the top, the partnership exists. Can we highlight it, please? The partnership exists to advance OpenAI Inc.'s mission of ensuring that safe artificial general intelligence is developed and benefits all of humanity. It says, right?
Yes.
OpenAI Inc. is the nonprofit, right?
Yes.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but this statement is telling anyone who reads it that the partnership, OpenAI LP, the for-profit, exists to advance OpenAI Inc., the nonprofit's mission of ensuring that safe artificial intelligence is developed and benefits all humanity, right?
May I give two nuances?
I'm just asking you, sir, isn't that what it's saying?
Well, you modified the words a little bit, but if you're just reading the words, then yes.
Okay. Doesn't say anything about advancing Greg Brockman's personal wealth to $30 billion, does it?
No.
And it says in the next sentence, the general partner's duty to this mission and the principles advanced in the OpenAI Inc. charter take precedence over any obligation to generate a profit. Does it say that?
Yes.
So wouldn't it be reasonable for someone reading this to think that that means that the money that is generated through the for-profit is going to go primarily to the nonprofit? Wouldn't you think that?
No.
Okay. Because you got to get people like you having $30 billion in the mix.
I'm not sure I'd characterize it like that.
And you go on to tell investors, or anyone reading it, I guess, that the partnership, it's the for-profit, may never make a profit. And the general partner is under no obligation to do so. Right?
Yes.
So someone reading this may think that there's a decent chance that if you invest, you're never going to get any money, right?
Certainly possible.
You voted as a member of the nonprofit board. You voted to create this for-profit entity, didn't you?
Yes.
And that's when you received equity in this for-profit entity, didn't you?
Not sure of the relative timing, but yes.
And you didn't pay any money for that equity stake.
That is true.
Your stake in the for-profit entity, was it disclosed in this blog post?
I think the general understanding was that employees, such as myself, would have equity stakes.
That's not my question.
It was your question, do we specifically list out me?
Your equity stake in the for-profit entity publicly disclosed in this blog post.
We did not specifically call myself out.
Okay, and it's that equity stake that has resulted in you now having this $30 billion, right?
The value of it has grown a lot, yes.
Ilya Sutskever also received an equity stake in OpenAI's for-profit, didn't he?
He did.
He didn't pay any money for that equity stake, did he?
He did not.
And Sam Altman received an indirect equity stake in the OpenAI for-profit through his interest in the company YC Holdings, right?
I'm not sure if that's an accurate characterization, and certainly I don't think that was an intentional thing.
Okay, Your Honor, I would go to the deposition transcript 268, lines 6 through 19.
I'm sorry, 268.
Yes, 268, lines 6 through 19. Question starting, and do you know?
We'll object that.
Hold on. That doesn't talk about the disclosure, so not yet.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
It doesn't talk about the disclosure on this blog post.
No, the question was, I asked him whether Altman had received an indirect equity stake in OpenAI, the for-profit, through its interest YC Holdings. That was the question.
Okay, hold.
Your Honor, the testimony is not.
Hold on. It's still based on hearsay. There's no foundation.
Okay. You don't know whether Sam Altman has an equity stake in the for-profit through his holdings and YC Holdings, do you?
My understanding is that Y Combinator did invest in the LP. Sam had some pre-existing interest.
So you believe he does have an equity stake?
I believe those facts that I said, and so I believe that yes, there is an indirect one, but I don't think it's correct to say that he received an indirect stake, and certainly not at the creation of the for-profit. No.
Okay. OpenAI's nonprofit had around 150 employees before this for-profit entity was created, right?
I would believe that.
And you moved essentially all of the full-time employees to the for-profit, correct?
I think basically everyone moved over, yes.
Before the for-profit was created, the nonprofit owned all of the intellectual property of OpenAI, right?
Yes.
And the intellectual property is the information from which AI models are created, right?
I might say it a little differently.
Okay. How would you say it?
I guess the IP is the underlying, source code that is used to, I guess, produce models as part of it, but there's a lot more to the activities that we do.
So more than just produce models.
I would say it's the source code that we had been working on.
It's quite valuable, right?
That we did put evaluation on it.
And the AI models are what create these things like ChatGPT, right?
Those did not exist at the time.
No, but that's not my question. My question is, the AI models are what create things like ChatGPT, right?
It's a little strange way of characterizing it.
Okay, you need to have an AI model to have a chatbot like ChatGPT, right?
Yeah, I would say that ChatGPT itself is kind of an overall system for interacting with an AI model.
Once the OpenAI for-profit was created, substantially all the intellectual property was transferred from the nonprofit to the for-profit, right?
At a fair valuation in exchange for an equity stake.
That wasn't described in the blog post that we just looked at, was it?
I'm not certain.
And Your Honor, speak convenient time to break.
Okay. All right. Members of the jury will go ahead and take our second break for the day. Everybody good? Any questions? Oh, everybody's good? All right. We'll stand in recess with the jury.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode on While We Were Distracted.